Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brendan Hauser with EVOQ Bike. Will Barta from Movistar is on the podcast today. And while you know him as a super fast time trialist, Grand Tour rider, killer on the climbs, it's interesting to hear him talk about his desire to become more explosive, the VLA max work that he's doing, some of the numbers that he's putting out in these seated sprints. And we go through the gamut of a lot of nitty-gritty training details. He's definitely one of these athletes that, while he's working with a World Tour coach, is involved in his training and thinks about what he's doing, the running, what he does when he fails a workout, his favorite upcoming races, and the mindset. So, Will, thank you so much for doing this. There are a ton of gems that every athlete can apply to their own training and racing. Good luck, and if you need help, check out the more training articles that are for free on our blog. Tons of YouTube videos. If you need anything, hit us up. Talk to you later. See ya. Thanks, man. How's it going this morning? Or this afternoon for you?
Yeah, afternoon now, yeah. So no, everything's going well. Thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. You're in Europe somewhere. Whereabouts?
Yeah, I'm in Nice right now.
Okay. I
hmm
was reading an old article from Nate Wilson, who's been on the podcast, and
Uh-huh.
you had mentioned that you'd moved there. So
Mm.
you're still loving Nice?
Yeah, I still like Nice a lot. Yeah, it's a really nice place to be.
I had a bike there once, and I can't
Mm.
remember where I was. I was more downtown, but the riding was so awesome for being in such a, you know, city type vibe. And then very quickly, it was great riding, which I don't even know the roads there really, but I
Yeah,
was pretty impressed.
no, it's really nice. It takes, I don't know, the city is a bit hectic, but as soon as you're out, it's super nice.
That's cool.
And
So
where are you actually? Where do you live?
So I'm in Blowing Rock, North Carolina,
Okay, nice.
western part of the state in the mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains. Some people know
Okay, sweet.
Boone.
Oh yeah, okay.
App State is right there. So I've been
Nice.
here for about 3 years and
Okay.
loving it.
Oh, sweet.
Y- Yeah, great riding. No complaints, except for when it
Yeah,
snows. But
yeah,
other
yeah.
than that.
No, exactly.
So before we jump into the nitty gritty, let's do a quick intro for a couple people who might
hmm
not know who Will Barta is. Who are you? What type of rider are you? Who do you race for?
Yeah, my name's William Barta. I'm from Boise. Yeah, I'm a pro cyclist on Movistar team now. I've been pro now. I think last year was my sixth year as a pro. So I've been on CCC, EF, and then now Movistar. I would say I'm kind of timer, time trialist, oftentimes helping the team in various roles. So yeah, kind of a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Curious. Three very different kits:
hmm
CCC, EF, Movistar. Which do you love the most? Even though you're probably biased at this point.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think Movistar's pretty classic with the blue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's changed a little bit with, but it's still the classic blue, which I really like. I mean, I also, yeah, I think it'll be kind of fun when I'm old to have some of the CCC kits just because they're so bright that I think they'll age in a funny way. But I mean, yeah, I would say I'm really happy with the Movistar kit, and it's just, yeah, kind of a kit. Yeah, it's different than what it was when I grew up racing, but it's still the same in a way.
Very cool. So we're recording this at the end, actually just before Thanksgiving. This probably won't post until February. So just to give people some
Okay.
context as we're talking about things,
hmm
next couple months, what are you doing for training? Or maybe what have you been doing do you look at this as base, or I don't want to put words in your mouth? What's November, December, and when do you start racing? January or February, if you know?
Yeah, so I started racing at the end of January, like the last couple of days of January. So my season, for me, was the latest my season has ever finished in 2024 this year. So I finished October 20th or 21st.
Wow.
So it was pretty long because I started in January. So that's a long season. So yeah, I took 3 weeks off the bike. Didn't really do much. Just a little bit of exercising with my wife, but nothing major. Um, and then I've just started now pretty light. So yeah, the longest ride I've done has been 3.5 hours and some hiking, some running, gym, a bit diverse. But now it's starting to ramp up more. And yeah, I think, what is today? November 25th. And I think
Mhm.
in 2 days is the first effort I have. So it's just been
Awesome.
riding so far.
Are you looking forward to those or dreading those?
No, I like it. I mean, the thing I enjoy about training is kind of working on something and achieving something. So like it's nice to just ride around a bit but but I do like doing the efforts on the bike and yeah, feeling like I'm getting something done.
What's that first session going to be?
It's nothing too crazy. It's just some whatever you want to call them, torque SFR at just like tempo wattage. So it's nothing crazy at all.
Will you do those all year, just in base for a couple months? How does that progress?
Yeah, I actually started with a new coach for this season,
Okay.
so I'm not exactly sure. In the past, from my experience, I really like doing torque type efforts all year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, whether it's placebo or actually does something for me, I don't really know, but I feel you could say well activated, and yeah, I feel more steady and sturdy on the
Mm-hmm.
bike, and I'm kind of a small guy, and yeah, I wouldn't say like raw power is my strongest point. So I kind of like having that feeling of yeah, really pushing hard on the pedals, and I like it all year.
Do you combine that with strength work, or though would those be on two separate days, or totally depends?
It depends, but I mean, I like to do it often. Yeah, in the morning
Mm-hmm.
before strength. I always, for me, if I was in charge always of my training, I like having like the neuromuscular type work done on the same day as the gym. Um, but like often there's a time and a place for things that I don't always understand. So sometimes it's like that, sometimes it's not like that, and yeah, I think oftentimes I find when I'm at altitude, I don't do it as often in the same day.
Okay. What are you doing for strength work? And maybe even break that down if it changes now versus in season if you do it all year round or maybe you don't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's a lot of squats, deadlifts. Uh, the last year I started doing a bit more plyometrics, also in
Mm.
sequences, and I found that to be quite beneficial. Yeah, I think I've had some injuries over the years, and like I think with these plyometrics, it's not just the physical part of it, but kind of mentally switching on to moving in these ways with being fast while you're doing it is something that I needed to work on, and I feel like it benefits me on the bike as well.
Mm. What are some of the plyo? Like, is it just, yeah, I don't even want to see that. What type of plyo stuff that would you do? Like, say your three favorites.
Oh, I mean, yeah, just a standard, box jump I like. I think
Okay.
everybody likes that, but I have, I don't know if I have a top three, but I mean, it's some variation of, single leg step down, double leg jump, or single leg. Also, if you're switching in these things, these aren't really, I mean, I do the basics by myself, but when I work with a physio is when I do, more of the complicated ones, and he's the one deciding this. And that also, I think it's good to have someone else deciding it because it kind of challenges you mentally. And I think that's kind of overlooked in all this. It's just making your brain fire in a different way.
I love that. Go in on that a little bit more. Like, is it getting you race brain or just like changing up speeds or what is that?
Yeah, I think it's just, we all ride bikes however many hours a week. It's a lot of the same motion, and you're really good at that. But yeah, I mean, I think at this level, you have to be, I wouldn't say like a complete athlete because obviously we don't need to be, throwing javelins or anything like that. But I think you have to be able to move quickly, make decisions quickly, and your body needs to know itself when you're descending, sprinting, anything like that. And I think being challenged in a way of moving that you're not
Mm.
necessarily used to, I think it helps you in like things like descending and having to make these quick decisions.
That's so interesting. Just hearing more and more of the pro athletes talking about this, like mind muscle connection, and exactly as you said, it's just more than pedaling the bike now and full athlete. It's really interesting to hear you guys and girls talk about that. So, when you had such a long season, this might not be applicable. Most people listening are going to be amateurs, but what
Hmm.
are some things that you learned or going into if you knew the season was going to be so long? Like, how do you make it through 10 months of racing? It's just, that's a really long,
Yeah, it's
long
long.
time.
It's long. I had quite a long break in the summer. That's the first thing. I
Okay.
had about 2 months without racing. So it's almost like, or maybe even more than 2 months. So I almost had a second off season to
Mm.
kind of go down a bit and rebuild. Um, I mean, I think the major thing is to take some small breaks in there. If you're just pushing all the time, obviously it's just gonna eventually you're gonna hit a wall. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, I say this and then I push, and so sometimes it's a lot easier said than done, you know. But but I mean, I think that's the big thing, and I think it's also realizing that when the season's that long, you're gonna have ups and downs. It's not always gonna be the same level, and that's okay. And you just have to kind of like acknowledge it's not going to be okay sometimes, but it's not like you're a different person or a different rider. It's just not every moment can be tip top.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, from a training, like I said, kind of having a bit of a break, I think, and building back up, and also just going back, to fundamentals, you could say, or because it's you're racing all spring and you're just doing all these high end efforts, and yeah, I think that still has a place in the training all year because I think it really is what pushes you forward. But I think kind of, yeah, coming off that, maybe doing some hiking, maybe doing some other lower intensity activities to just let your body recover and build back that base really helps.
And you mentioned really enjoying the aspect of, working on something. What do
Mhm.
you want to try to improve for 2025?
For 2025, I mean, yeah, I think unless you're a poker, there's lots of things you want to improve, you know? I mean, yeah, I would like to be probably a bit more explosive. That's something I always have a bit of a struggle with. Also, I think, yeah, just being a little more consistent through the season. I kind of have a tendency to start pretty well and then fade a little bit. So I think just being a bit more consistent through the season and letting myself rest a bit more.
What do you think could lead to that? Is it just, as you said, rest to help you stay stronger longer, or is there something different in training of volume or
Yeah,
intensity, or what's the puzzle piece there?
I mean, I think a lot of it is rest. I mean, some of that is the calendar, and some of that's me. I mean, I think it's I find it really quite difficult with the Giro because it's like a super compacted schedule, all and it's all things you're super motivated for. At least I am. So it's like you start the spring and you have, I don't know, say Paris-Nice, that's a goal, or Catalonia, and then it's like you have to take a break almost, and then you go straight to altitude and it's build up for the Giro. And I think like, yeah, maybe I just need to be a bit more easy longer after Paris this year and build it back up a little more slowly. But I think from training, yeah, I think it all is pretty good. I think maybe a little less of like yeah, high tempo work. I'm finding that to be. I think it's hard to say because I've been riding for a long time now, and not everyone has this base of that work. But I just kind of find that it makes me it gives me a lot of fatigue, but I don't feel like I get so much out of it. Whereas if I'm doing VO2 matched or stuff above that for shorter periods but intense, I feel like I move forward a lot more without having as much system fatigue.
That's interesting. What's okay? So then maybe you just answer this. I'm always curious when you look at trying to become more explosive, what training has the most impact? Just the VO2 max stuff? Or when you say explosive, I think some people might hear this like, an attack to get into the break or the jostling before the
Mm,
climb actually starts. Like, what is explosive to you? And then what training
yeah,
kind of coincides with that?
I mean, for me, it's like that minute and less type effort.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think I already do quite a bit of VO2 max, and yeah, I think I'm in a pretty good spot there. I mean, honestly, it's almost a shorter effort than VO2 max. It's like the Vela max, and being able to handle that through the day.
Mhm.
Um, that I have the hardest time with. I'm a pretty small guy, so those things they add up. And I mean, I think yeah, there's metabolic things that play into that. And then there's strength, and yeah. So for me, it's really important doing a really good winter of gym and then continuing that into the season. I find that's really the key for me. Honestly, is just being a strong person.
I love hearing this because I think a lot of listeners that see someone who's a climber, a really good time trialist, aren't expecting him to be like, oh, I want to be more explosive and I'm hitting the gym and doing all these things. But it is sort of this, I don't want to say new trend, but in the past 5 years, like it's a different maybe different type of cyclist.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it's
mean,
refreshing.
yeah, I think so for sure. Because I mean, I think cycling's changed. I think it has become a more explosive sport. I mean, it used to be like, who could handle the most kilojoules, and then 6 watts per kilo or 6.5 watts per kilo. But now it's all about who can get to the last time. And yeah, there's still cool kilojoules playing into it, but it's like who can do 7 watts per kilo for the longest and then hang on for most people. It's not.
Those are just
It's
mind-boggling numbers for people to think about. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I can do it always that long, but I mean, I think that's really the key. It's just so much more explosive than it used to be, and so I think people have to change their training to fit this.
Interesting. What's a good, people love to see, we might do like a Will Barta workout on Instagram or something. What's your VLA max banger day? Like how many efforts are you doing?
Oh,
What are you trying to target if you know off the top of your head?
yeah, I've seen these on your Instagram, and then I'm always wondering what mine is. But I have to be honest, like, yeah, I mean, I did send something to you afterwards, but
Yeah, or send whatever you think is like a banger that's
yeah,
like, ooh.
I mean, just all these type of, I don't know. One thing I did a lot during COVID, which really during the COVID break in 2020, that helped me a lot, was just like it was three sets of 4 minutes to like 45 seconds. I think about 550 seated, and so yeah, I'm around 60, a little less than 60 kilos. So seated, it's pretty hard. It was pretty hard for me then. It's gotten a little bit easier now, but it's not like a crazy amount. But by the end, you really felt like anaerobic, and yeah, that really I think helped push me into a better rider, to be honest, and able to cope much more in the races once we restarted again.
So it's 3 sets of 4 by 45 seconds?
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
12 total, but in
What's
a pretty condensed period.
why seated?
Um, I mean, yeah, it's better to ask the trainer
Okay.
this than me, but
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I mean, it's always. I also agree that from a whatever, if you want to say physics viewpoint, you're gonna be most efficient seated doing that power. So for me, it's often, yeah, it's also like during the race, you're making all these micro accelerations, and you're not standing for these, hopefully,
Mhm.
because then you're wasting more energy. So I think it's getting that recruitment seated. I mean, obviously it's much different to recruit your muscles seated and standing. So yeah, obviously if you can do 550 seated at 45 seconds, you can do, I don't know, 700 standing. But that
Mhm.
wasn't really the goal. And I do like to do some of it standing, the VLO max work and the VO2 max, but I think, yeah, when you're going full in a race in all these situations, you have to sit. So it's like you're not training to make big numbers. You're training to win bike races, hopefully. So
Mm.
it's about doing it how it's applicable to the race. And
I love that. That's a great quote. What's last question on that? Sorry to be in the nitty gritty. How much
I
rest do you do between those?
think it was quite a lot of rest. I think it was like 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I mean, and that's like barely pedaling, like really really easy.
Still probably went fast in the mind, I would imagine, after those. I mean, if you're 59 kgs doing
Yeah,
550, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
woo!
yeah. Yeah. No, it's a lot, but yeah, don't quote me. I mean, yeah, I think it was somewhere around there. This was a long time ago, but I did it a lot. Like I would do it twice a
Yeah.
week during that period, and yeah, that really helped me, I have to say.
And when you mentioned that you're kind of doing VO2 max a lot, how often do you do that in like a build phase? And would that be the only intensity of the week, or do you do anything else, or do you purely
Um,
focus on that?
I mean, definitely a little bit yeah, you could say sweet spot or something like this, especially on the TT bike.
Uh,
I started moving a little bit more to just doing like a bit more over unders on the TT bike rather than sweet spot or things. But I mean, it's definitely not just VO2 max. There's
okay.
some, yeah, maybe high threshold also, things like this. Uh, yeah, and I think, yeah, it kind of depends on the part of the season. Like
Mm,
in the summer, when I had a whole season behind me, I was really just doing, yeah, fat max on the climbs. type things like this. So nothing crazy. Um, just because, yeah, like we were talking about, it was a long season, so I didn't really want to add that much fatigue. So by not doing that much of that intensity between fat max and VO2 max, I mean, a little bit of threshold, but nothing crazy.
Okay. Since you brought up the TT bike, I'm curious about
Yeah.
this. For those that don't know, second, so close to getting the win at a Grand Tour, and then second to Brandon McNulty. So, Will is extremely fast on the time trial bike. What are some TT tips for someone who's thinking about getting a bike of what's the low hanging fruit of getting faster?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think people are super quick to, spend money on bike and frame and all this, but I mean, the biggest thing is your body to me. So it's
Mm.
finding the right fit that balances both power and position with the aerodynamics. So I've actually barely changed my position over the last, since I was a junior, pretty much, really very minimal changes. And I've tried things and they just haven't worked out. So it's kind of funny that I just keep coming back to that baseline.
Hmm.
Um, but I think just, yeah, I mean, it's not super simple, but like, I think people sometimes make it a bit more complicated than it is because it's about finding that balance. And I think people just always want to tinker with the position. And I'm not saying that's wrong because, yeah, you do want to find like the fastest position, but when you tinker with that, and I know from doing this myself, that sometimes you just lose, yeah, the comfort and the the ability to produce watts. And in the end, most TTs are not dead flat. There's a climb or there's something, and you just need to be able to produce watts.
Hmm.
And so by going too extreme, you see a lot of people, I think, going way too extreme with positions. Uh, yeah, you can't go fast. I mean, maybe on a track or in a wind tunnel, but on the road, it doesn't work out always.
What are some of the things that you veered to try that then you were like, oh, that didn't work for me, and came back to your like baseline position?
Yeah, my first year on Movistar, I tried to go a bit lower in the front end, um, and it was faster, but like in the end, I wasn't going faster in the races.
Hmm.
And I mean, yeah, it wasn't like a crazy amount faster, but it was enough that like it was like, okay, yeah, we should do this. But then you
Hmm.
get out on the road and, yeah, you're going, I don't know, 10, 15K in a TT at least, and it just, yeah, the power just wasn't there. So, and for me, it was also not just about the power, but the breathing. I found it really hard to breathe in that position, and so I think a lot of people do they go on the trainer, even at home, or they look at the position and they go, oh, yeah, it's okay, but you're not doing, yeah, whatever threshold for 30 minutes, and like you're not belly breathing, you're not going, super full, and
Hmm.
so they just get too aggressive. And yeah, I did that. I mean, I've also tried going up and thinking, okay, maybe I'll get more power, but in the end, that was also worse too
Hmm.
because I just wasn't comfortable. So I think it yeah, kind of settling into a position. And yeah, of course, everyone wants to get better and you should want to get better, but you have to be a bit like, okay, this is probably what works for me if I'm going fast, and there's not too much more to do.
Hmm. How many times a week do you ride the time trial bike?
I would say probably about twice a week, once or twice a week.
Okay.
Nothing,
And
nothing crazy.
so yeah, you mentioned before over unders. You do just endurance rides on them, or is
Yeah,
yours
a
a
bit this
workout?
time of year just to get used to the position. But in the season, yeah, I'll do easy rides and workouts. In the season, I don't really like to do endurance rides on the TT bike. And yeah, I mean, so yeah, I'm from Boise, and Kristen Armstrong is from Boise. And I
Okay.
remember growing up with her, and she was like, "Yeah, the TT bike is like it's for going fast." So, and I do like that idea. Like, okay, when you're on it, you should have an intention of going
Mm.
fast because you should keep that in your head. Um, So I don't really love doing endurance rides, not because I'm uncomfortable on it. I actually feel quite comfortable on my TT bike and it doesn't really bother me. but I just like the idea of it being a tool for going fast.
I like that mindset. It's like I'm on the TT
Yeah.
bike, I'm ripping it today.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So, always curious. You had mentioned when you said torque training that you weren't sure if, like, I don't know if this necessarily makes me faster, but like, I feel good with it. What's some bro
mhm.
science that you believe in? Like, there's no data about it, but you're really positive. You're like, man, this works. And anything that you can think of that you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, I mean, like torque. I mean, you talk to different people. Some people say, yeah, torque is great. Some people say there's no science behind it at all, and it's just doesn't mean anything. But I feel better with it, and yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see because now everybody, I would say not everybody, but most people, they're doing, a lot more rides at a higher intensity, like, or not the whole ride, but efforts at a higher intensity than I'd say they used to. So you're essentially getting a similar torque value just because they're riding at a higher intensity.
Mm.
So maybe there's less and less reason to do it because you're already getting that torque.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. I just feel good with torque training. Also the other thing that, yeah, this is just my opinion, and I don't know exactly why, but I also feel a lot better on the bike when I keep running through the season.
Okay.
And yeah, obviously there's no real science behind that. I just could say, yeah, you're getting maybe a better, like, you can use your hips more, keeping them more loose, things like this. Also your back, but there's no science, saying that it
Mm-hmm.
makes you faster. But I just have found that when I'm running, I feel much better on the bike. I'm not saying I go to the Giro and keep running through that, but through the training camps and things like this, running a bit, I find really helps me.
How long are you running duration wise? And
Or
how many times a week?
yeah, not so far. Like yeah, 5K. And often I just do it before breakfast with my wife or something like this. Not with a real, like, I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do 4x4 running or something like this.
Yeah.
It's more just to have the movement of it. I find really helps me with my comfort level and ability to, yeah, produce power on the bike.
So that's like a 20, 30 minutes run?
Yeah,
30?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
25. Yeah,
Okay.
so I really like that. This year I have to say, like, I didn't do so much, and I really, like, I ran through the beginning of the season through Paris-Nice, and then I didn't run so much, and I really felt like I didn't run it. That
Hmm.
didn't feel as good on the bike for me.
That's interesting. So on the other side, what about have you ever tried anything that slowed you down a little bit or maybe impeded progress that in looking back, you're like, that really didn't work for me?
I mean, I think just I think yeah, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I think a lot of people have this just riding too hard on endurance rides.
Mm.
I think you just don't adapt to your other training as well because your body's, yeah, working harder than it needs to be, and it's just not always a reason to push.
So going on that, what's the target now for endurance? Is it power, heart rate, RPE, a combo of all?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of all. I mean, yeah, obviously it depends a bit, but like at the beginning of the season, I use heart rate quite a bit more just because you're fresh and everything. But
Mhm.
yeah, like I really don't think in the season you can use heart rate. I just don't find it reliable enough for endurance. At least if you're carrying some fatigue. Um, I think that, like, for myself, yeah, it's just too variable day to day, especially when you start thinking about altitude, things like this.
Hmm.
So I think a combination of power and RPE, and yeah, I think it's important to trust the RPE on it a bit.
What's the early heart rate? Like, do you go off percentage of max or just a specific value that works for
Just
you?
a
How do you
specific
target?
value. I mean, like, I definitely try to, like, cap myself at the beginning of the year. Definitely no more than 160, but honestly, like 150, 145 even.
Okay.
Uh, so I mean, yeah, I would say my max heart rate is probably like, yeah, 195, something like this.
Okay.
So yeah,
And then the power, is there a percent threshold target that you use?
I mean, at this time of year, not really.
RPE.
Just the RPE and the heart rate. I mean, I think, after December, even December, you start to have a better base under you and you can kind of go more off power. And yeah, I don't know. I never really think in the percentages, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just, maybe I should, but you get your zones from your trainer based on the testing we do. And that's just kind of how I think. I never really think in percentages.
So you just follow like the absolute wattage value that they give you,
Yeah, the
like go hit
absolute
this
wattage.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
And one thing that's kind of been interesting to me is now being in the Spanish team, sometimes I get this in watts per kilo, which is a bit different than,
Oh, interesting.
yeah. So, I mean, in the end, it's the same thing. But
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to say, oh, today I was 60.5, yesterday I was 61, so now I'm going to do this much less. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a rough value, but yeah.
Since we're getting nitty gritty on values, when you're doing torque, are you doing a specific RPM at specific power, or is it actually a torque value that you have to calculate, or how does that
No,
shake out?
no, 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 no. I've heard, I mean, I know people who do it based off the torque value, but I've never been prescribed it this way. So
Okay.
I've never done it. So, uh, yeah, I mean, the last year I always did them, I would say like, 20, 30 watts below my threshold before last year. And last year I started doing them more around threshold, at threshold or a little bit at high threshold. And that was quite interesting to me because I had the sensation almost that I was doing VO2 max in my body.
Mm.
So that was
Hmm.
quite interesting to try out. And I quite liked it.
What RPM are those at?
I think it was between 50 and 60 RPM.
Okay. Dang. Yeah.
Yeah.
Motoring.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that sounds pretty brutal now I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it, but
I mean, you look pretty ugly on the bike probably a lot of the time doing it, but it's kind of fun to do.
I like that a lot. What's last oh, actually one thing I was thinking of, so when you get deep into racing then two other training questions. What do you
Uh-huh.
find is like your bread and butter through the season when it's really busy racing? Like just races every weekend, you got some midweek races. Are there any workouts ever or is it like recover and endurance?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the most part, I'm doing stage races, so usually I have like a week or two at least. So yeah, I would say it's a lot of endurance when you're really racing, but I still do some sprints, some torch, even some
Okay.
VO2 max sometimes if there's time. I mean, obviously, if there's not time, there's not time, but if if I can fit it in, I like to.
Is it an accurate statement you like varied training? It seems like you do
Yeah,
a lot of different things.
for sure.
Cool. And then how does it work for you as I was thinking about this when you're talking about, hey, my coach gives me these values to go hit. It's Tuesday, you go out, you're supposed to hit whatever watts and you're not hitting it. Do you muscle through the workout and hit whatever numbers you can knowing you're probably close to the zone or are you like trying to shift it to another day? And I realize this is a super granular question so there might be like a
Yeah.
million variables, but what kind of jumps in your head when I
No,
first
I
asked
mean,
that?
yeah, when it's really like I feel like it's really a slog. I mean, I'll probably try two or if it's 4 reps, I'll probably try two. And if on the second one I'm still not getting it, then I say, yeah, it's not meant to be, and my body's
Okay.
trying to tell me something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think yeah, like anything, there's a time and a place. Like obviously, if you're at altitude or something like this, it might not. You also have to listen to your body almost even more there. But there's times where yeah, it just doesn't feel comfortable.
Mm.
But you do just need to muscle through it. But often then I'm asking my coach about that because you see it like it's one thing if it's your body telling you like no, and it's another thing if you look at it before and this is gonna be really hard, and then if I have a doubt, like I mean obviously you want to have the self-belief that you'll do it, but you also need to be smart enough to ask your coach, okay, if this is really hard, should I be muscling through it or should I be stopping? Because yeah, you're not. I said earlier, you're not training to train. So if there's not a
Mm-hmm.
purpose of
Mm.
muscling through it, then there's no reason to do it.
How far down the calendar of workouts do you look? Are you looking a few days ahead, just the next day? How do you view
Oh
training?
no, I mean, as soon as it's in training peaks, I look at everything. I mean, yeah, I mean for multiple reasons. Like I mean, it's also like, I make my doctor's appointments based on when I have a rest day or, things like this.
Mhm.
So it's also just about planning my life. And yeah, like, I mean, probably also if, I have an endurance ride and we're talking like, the zone is 30 watts difference, I'm probably gonna, if I have a super hard workout the next day, I'm probably gonna air towards the side where it's a bit easier. So just because I don't really feel like that type of workout moves the needle that much,
Mhm.
whereas crushing something important, yeah, it moves the needle a lot more. So I think, yeah, I mean, I look at all of it a lot.
Awesome. Last kind of training question. Anything underrated in training? You've given a lot of gems already, so we might have already covered something that
Uh,
you're thinking, but just it's like it doesn't really get the love that you think it deserves.
uh, no, it's I mean, sometimes I think you just have to go out and, I mean, I think people know this, but just smash it because on a climb or something, because as much as we want to distill it to numbers and training and all this, like you just have to have the sensation sometimes of going full. Because I think that also gives you the confidence in races to suffer through it.
So would you say, said differently, is that like when you're out riding, like, man, you're warming up and you're like 20 watts higher and you're just like, oh, I feel so good. Is that the day to go for the PR of whatever's in the back of your mind, whether it's a 5 minute, 20 minutes, something that you like? Is that what you're like, just when you feel
Yeah.
it, go full?
I mean, no, I mean, I mean, I've always talked to yeah, maybe I'm a bit like, I don't know. I don't like to do things that I'm not like, that doesn't have an intention. So I
Mm,
always talk about this with my coach before. It's never like I just like go out and, I mean, yeah, sometimes at training camp, everyone starts going hard or something. And then, yeah, I end up going harder than maybe I set out to go that day. But usually if I want to do 5 minutes, 20 minutes, something like this, or even if it's like, say, at the end of the season, you say, oh, I just want to go for some KOMs.
hmm
I don't just do it like off a whim. I usually talk to my coach about it beforehand.
Okay, cool. So do you, yeah, okay, I could go down a million holes on that, but
No, no, go
okay.
ahead. It's fine.
No, I think it's it. So a lot of amateur riders that are listen will, the 20-minute number. And it's,
Mm,
hey, I wanna go after this. And I think most cyclists, and maybe I could be wrong with this, want to see that increase. And
yeah,
but they don't always know when to go for it. And they're like, well, should I do
yeah,
this after the rest week? It's like, well, you might be too fresh to do a 20-minute effort. Like
yeah,
maybe get a week of training and then go. And so I think the way you said that to me, you obviously can, people can tell from the 30, 40 minutes we've been talking, you think a lot
mm,
about your training, you're in tune with your body.
yeah,
I think for amateurs and people who are really maybe in their first 3 years of serious training, it's hard to know when to go for that PR. And they try to plan this like magical day. And like you said,
yeah,
like then they have this crap day at work and at 5 p.m. they're supposed to go crush this 5 minute effort. So I think sometimes what I'm trying to get out of you is like, how would you help athletes understand when to go for that effort that they want to see,
yeah,
but they can't always plan? Am I verbalizing this
yeah,
along
yeah, yeah, yeah,
correctly?
yeah. No, no, no. I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, yeah, obviously it. I'm not trying to say two different worlds, but my whole life is cycling. So
Right,
if I know I need to do this, I'm probably gonna take it super easy the whole day before or something like this because it matters to me.
right.
So and I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but I have a lot less. My life is built around cycling.
Hmm.
So I think sometimes maybe yeah, if you're yeah working in a normal job and yeah you have a big day that comes up and things don't go as you expect, and then it's okay to say yeah today's not the day. Like
Hmm.
it's not gonna change anything. No one's gonna die. Nothing's gonna change if you wait a day to do it. So I think it's just yeah. I mean, it's just about having the patience with yourself and the trust with yourself to know it doesn't have to be exact always. I mean, my training often changes all the time because even though my life is catered to cycling, things come up. You get sick. You have
Hmm.
some niggling injury. You have to go somewhere. You have to go to a different race than you're supposed to. So things change, and it's important to be able to change with that and respect your body.
That's helpful. Just a reminder for everybody, you got to be nimble with your training calendar because
Yeah.
sometimes we see it in Training Peaks. It's like, no, this is supposed to be the day, and the moons didn't all
No,
like line up
exactly.
perfectly, and it can be
Exactly.
frustrating.
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, it could also be, yeah, raining outside or, something,
Right.
lots of different things are out of your control. So it's all about, like everything controlling the controllables and then also realizing life is life. So,
Love that.
yeah,
Nutrition.
yeah,
Let's go open-ended first. Anything unique about your nutrition, whether it's on the bike, off the bike? Shaking his
I
head
don't
no
think
for the
so. I think
no.
it's, no, pretty
Let's
normal.
break it
Yeah.
down then. Long 5, 6 hour ride versus race day. Does that
Yeah.
change?
Yeah. I mean, depends what you're doing in that 5 or 6 hour ride. I mean, I think, yeah, if I'm doing super hard efforts, yeah, it might be 120 grams an hour. But if I'm just riding endurance, it might be more like 60 to 75 grams an hour of carbs. So, whereas in a race, yeah, unless you know 100% if it's going to be an easy sprint day, there's no chance of wins, nothing, then it might be a bit less than 90 to 120 in a race. But I mean, the rest of the time, you're always 90 to 120 grams of carbs.
And then are those gels, sugary drink mix, solid foods? How does that break down?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if it's an easier start, usually then I'll have some solids at the beginning, whether that's science or just psychological or yeah. It just feels good to have something that you feel like, oh, it's gonna last me through the day a bit more. But I mean, honestly, the races are going fast these days, and most of the time it's either some sort of chew gel or yeah, carb drink.
Okay. Are you when you're doing choose gels and carb drink, do you have a preference of like one versus the other? Or are you like splitting it? Do you like eating things or would you ever just do a ton of drink mix like the high carb, 80 grams in a bottle or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I like 80-gram type bottles, quite a bit. Yeah, like say it's gonna start and it's gonna be crazy for the break for the first hour, and you have a whole peloton there. For me, I really like the bottles then because it's just a lot easier. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then at the end of races, I always gravitate towards gel and maybe like whatever brand you're using. I don't know, like a 40, 50 gram type bottle of carb, so a bit less carb, just because it's just a bit more refreshing. To be
Cool.
honest, it's not as thick.
Yeah.
But I also really like the chews in that middle period of the race. I think there's just something about having to chew a little bit that makes me feel slightly better about it not just being a quick energy. And I don't think that's anything scientific. I think it's just in my head.
We'll put that into bro science. What's the
Yeah.
favorite chew? What are you eating? Gummies or actual like sports chews?
No, sports shoes. Yeah, from Tutti Citrus.
Okay.
Yeah.
A- Any supplements?
Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of people, beta alanine, uh, sometimes creatine, uh, and yeah, just your everyday multivitamin, magnesium, yeah, things like this.
Okay. And then any favorite food or specific meal that you like before big days that you just maybe bro science, you're like this helps.
Oh, I mean, not too much. I mean, just like I think probably I don't know, 75% of the days of the year I end up eating some variation of pasta and chicken for dinner.
Okay.
But
Pretty
that's
standard.
not always by choice, yeah. But that ends up being what a lot of my life is. But yeah, I mean, usually in breakfast if I'm training, if it's like a hard day, usually it's some sort of bowl of not yeah cereal, I guess, because I find that if like when I was younger, it was always like, oh yeah, you need to eat oatmeal, so it'll last you all day. But yeah, just with some of the like GI distress with that much fiber, I
Mhm.
often if it's a hard day, I'll be eating more cereals than actually like oatmeal. Which I think my mom, when she sees this, she came to Perry Nice this year and just eat cornflakes for breakfast, and she was a little disturbed by this, but yeah, in the end, it's a lot easier on the stomach for me.
So is that the go-to cornflakes?
I mean, a lot of the time, yeah, some sort of thing like this. So, um, yeah, something, yeah, some maybe a banana, some protein powder, some sort
Now
of
you're just
milk.
saying that for your mom. It's something healthy.
No. I mean, she would still say it was junky. So So like, yeah, it's nothing too crazy, but it's also I don't think that's what I always thought I'd be. I mean, yeah, sometimes also I eat pasta or something just because I get a bit sick of all this sweet stuff in
Hmm.
the morning. But
Pasta in the morning. That's interesting. What type of pasta?
yeah,
Are you doing putting anything on it or?
usually just some olive oil and cheese.
Okay.
It really grossed me out when I first became a cyclist, but just I mean over yeah, oftentimes it's what you're served by the hotels and stuff for at
Okay.
breakfast. I think at the UCI rule actually they have to give you rice, pasta, and egg in the morning.
That's give it to
And so
the
it's
UCI for a rule like that.
yeah, so yeah, you eat I mean there's a lot of times you eat pasta for breakfast, which I mean I always like imagine, you know, like an elf when he's having his like spaghetti with like maple syrup and gumdrops and all this. But usually it's just olive oil and some parmesan.
So that's perfect for Christmas time. I love that.
Yeah.
So, racing in the upcoming season, if you could pick your race calendar for 2025, what are the big highlights or and even maybe some like low-level races that you just really like for whatever reason?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the two races I would say I'm looking forward to doing the most, hopefully, in the spring would be Paris-Nice and Romandie. I think, yeah, Romandie is a World Tour race that, yeah, maybe you could say it's a little like World Tour light. I think some years it is, some years it isn't, but I just really like the way Swiss races are made for a rider like me that you can rely a bit more on the time trial.
Hmm.
And usually it's a Philly time trial because for me also being small, like time trials are good, but I need them to be not pan flat. So usually it's quite a good course for me. Paris Nice I like. I mean I also like the route, but obviously spending most of my season in Nice, I like finishing in Nice. It feels I mean it's as close to a home race as I can
Yeah.
get. So I really like that race a lot.
No World Tour races in Boise yet, but you can keep
Not
the
yet.
fingers
Maybe
crossed.
someday. Maybe someday.
If you looking back, if you could redo any race, and maybe not, maybe said differently, like something that you learned looking back, like damn, I made that was a mistake that I made, and I should have maybe done X, Y, and Z in this situation, a race scenario, or just a preparation, or anything that we you could go back in time and change. Does anything come to mind?
I mean, yeah, obviously in racing, like we talked about, losing by 1 second, that was that's one thing I would. I mean, you can say 1 second anywhere, but I mean, it's funny because that already feels pretty long ago now. So it's
Yeah.
not something that's like fresh in my memory. But whenever anyone brings it up, like, oh yeah, 1 second, yeah, that's not too much.
Sorry, didn't want to be
But
that guy.
no worries, no worries.
It's an
But
incredible. Is it disappointing, or are you like, okay, man, that was second to Primos. That's pretty
I
freaking
mean,
amazing.
at the time, I was super happy because I had no contracts for the next year. I
Mm,
thought I went into that Vuelta in 2020 thinking the CCC was folding, thinking, okay, well, I'm just enjoy it how I want to enjoy it because I probably won't be a pro cyclist next year.
oh wow.
So, so for me, I was obviously happy. And I mean, now, you know, then that winter I broke my leg and you think, okay, well, maybe I won't get back to that level again. So of course you wish, okay, I wish I had won when I was that close.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, in the end, I'm quite happy, obviously, because that's probably my best result as a cyclist. So, of course, you wish it was 1 second closer. But yeah, and then I mean, the other thing I wish I understood a bit better when I was younger, and it's just like when I was younger, I would go to altitude and just train like pretty much how I trained when I was at sea level. I didn't really respect altitude enough. So then I was just like, oh yeah, this isn't for me because I would always be dead
Mm.
afterwards. So far, it took me 2 times, or yeah, but 2 times. But when you're young, you know, you should each altitude camp is an investment when you're young because yeah, it's not like you have a high salary or anything like this. So then you kind of yeah, that was maybe a waste. And then now when I'm older and I understand a bit better how to do it, like I'm like okay, that would have made a big difference doing these correctly and probably would have paid off in the races quite a bit.
So is that just riding easier or
Riding easier, yeah.
okay?
So I mean, there's times you have to go hard, obviously, um, but I think yeah, if I think when you're young, you have this, oh yeah, I'm at a camp. I need to like do everything to the maximum, you know, and sometimes doing the best thing isn't, yeah, the maximum thing is not going maximum, but like to maximize your gains, you have to go easier sometimes. And that took me longer than I wish it had taken me to realize.
No better time than the present to know it.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
yeah. You mentioned a really interesting thing of the mindset at thinking, okay, CCC's folding. I'm just going to go do this my way, enjoy this.
Hmm.
Had that mindset going through that, do you feel like that's helped you in a way of racing moving forward? Like, hey, I'm overthinking some of this stuff, or I'm putting too much pressure on myself for X, Y, and Z. Have you learned from that, or been able to take something from that moving forward as you grew as a cyclist? Or it was a really interesting comment.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I learned from it, but the bit of the difference was that I also was on a team that folding, and all the directors are like, okay, yeah, do what you want.
Ah,
Now, it's like you have a job always. So, so whether that's trying to win the race or helping your teammate, you have a set objective there. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, you guys
YOLO.
might not be bike racers. We're not going to be here either next year, maybe. So, I mean, I have to say, like, it's a funny, Vuelta was funny. It was in one way kind of depressing, but it was also like probably one of the it was the most fun Grand Tour I think I've ever been in.
What is the vibe of the racers when that happens? I would imagine some are very mentally in the dumps. Others, like you, are trying to be an opportunist about the situation. Other people might be older and like, oh well, okay, this is the end, I guess. Or like, how does that affect the squad as a team in terms of like unity and like, all right, yo, let's go
Yeah.
win these races? Or are they not thinking
I
that?
don't think it was really a mentality of let's go win. It was more like let's just do the best we can, each of us for ourselves in a
Yeah.
way. Because yeah, it was. I mean, in the end, I think all but one of the riders in this World set kept going as a pro. So
Okay.
I mean, in the end, it worked out pretty well for most of us. But it was. I mean, it was like I felt like I don't know. Also, every other day, your roommate would be on the phone with their agent, or you would be on the phone with your agent, and it was a different experience, but I mean, I think it also just depends what group you're with. But I was lucky it was a group that could laugh through it because if you have a group that can't see the humor in it a bit, then I think it's going to be pretty rough. But luckily,
Mm,
it was a group that kind of saw okay, yeah, that's what it is, and we'll just make the most of it.
well said. So then on the flip side, we won't talk about 1 seconds anymore. Getting the first pro win in Valencia.
Hmm.
Anything that you can think of that you learned from that day that you can build off of, or just a standout feeling from it just had to be an incredible day for you?
Yeah, I know it's super nice. I mean, it was the first race of the year, and I just come down from altitude, and I was kind of I was working for the team most of the race, and then it was like the last day you could go for the break. And so, okay, yeah, well, I don't think it will make it, but I'm just gonna try because it was kind of the course and it was a shorter stage. So you thought maybe it's possible because of the climb in the middle of the day. So then the teams get kind of disjointed and things like this, and it's hard to organize a chase. So I thought I might as well try. And so, yeah, it was one of those things where I kind of just had no fear of failure. And
Mm.
sometimes, I mean, I wish I always was like that, but I think it's human nature. It's not easy to not have a fear of failure always. So, um, but yeah, I think just having trust in myself and yeah, just keeping on fighting the whole way because it was really close for I don't know how many kilometers they were right there. So it was just like, oh, make it one more corner, and then we'll see. So I think it's just taking things as it comes and trusting yourself and not being afraid of the failure.
So how, with it being the first race of the year, was that you kind of said I trusted in myself? Did you know how you were going, or do you really not know until you start racing? Like it's such a interesting thing for it to be the first one. You come down from camp, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna give this a shot. Were you even curious of how the fitness would be of
Yeah,
like
I
that
mean,
playing out?
I actually I felt like I was flying. Um, but it's funny because always the first race of the year, I have like every year, the first race day, I always like get cramps and things like this.
Mm.
So I, I had this, oh yeah, perfect and fly. But then of course also I was working for the team. So I had this feeling, but you have to do your job. So I was doing my job and each day got better. So I'll try the last day. And yeah, I mean, I really felt like it was going to pay off. And yeah, it's a camp that, I mean, it was just me up there in Sierra Nevada. So I didn't want to go there. And I mean, there was races to come where I think I knew I would have more opportunity, but it's also like, I don't, you don't want to let any opportunity go. So
Mm-hmm.
when I felt like I was riding well, I really wanted to go for it there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last couple questions is you know, you even said I've been riding my bike for a long time, and we talked about the aero position for on the time trial bike. At this point in your career, are you thinking on the road bike, okay, I need to get more aero? I can you still get more watts at where you're at, or how do you view just getting faster?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I've had some pretty big injuries, and so each year now I've still been getting more watts,
Mm,
uh, pretty much across the board. So I don't, I don't really, yeah, for me it's all about the engine still. Uh,
okay.
so I mean, I think there's guys, you hear people like Bardet, they say, oh yeah, I have my best numbers and I'm getting worse results. So I think with training science, how far it's advanced, I mean, it's also just you're gonna get better than you were doing those things that we were doing 5, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's all about building the engine. And of course, when I'm in the race, or take for example this Valencia stage, I mean, I was thinking the whole time about being aero, but to me, it's not the principal goal. I mean, uh, yeah, it's being fast. It's not being aero or it's just about being fast. Whether that's whatever that combination is that creates that. Um, so
How do watts compare on the TT bike versus road bike? Are they very similar when you're
for
going
me,
full
it's
out?
it's the same. Yeah.
Okay. Last question. If you had one more hour in the day, what would you use it for?
Uh, probably what I would use it for and should use it for might be different. But what
I want to hear both.
I mean, what I should use it for is probably to be doing learning more Spanish or French or something like this. Uh, what I probably I should say I would use it for that too, no, but I don't know, probably just hanging out with my wife.
That's good. Well
No,
time
not too
spent.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
Will, thanks, man. I appreciate you doing this. We'll post your link for people to follow on Instagram where we connected. And what else? Are you on Strava? Do you blog, TikTok, anything else?
No,
Social?
yeah, I'm not too good at any of it, but yeah, mainly Instagram and some Strava. Yeah,
And some Strava. All right. Everybody hit him up. Instagram, Strava. Won't see him doing any dancing videos on TikTok just yet.
not yet,
Uh,
not yet.
Not yet. Good luck with your training and racing, everybody. We will talk to you soon.